מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנות אשר ירביצני ימי מנוחות ינחלני, נפשי שובעת, ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי חילך בגיא צלמוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי. תשענת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדיפוני. כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. As we find our way through these dark moments, through these saddest of times, in search of comfort and solace, we often turn to the psalmist. And so I ask you to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember Charles Cohen. To his children, to Stuart and Beth and Leslie, and also to David and Larry, and to his grandchildren, Noah, Asher, and Eden, to his sister-in-law, Sally, and to the members of the family, and to so many dear and cherished friends. We've joined together today to remember, but also to celebrate the life of your beloved Chuck. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then, perhaps, to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Chuck's journey of nearly 90 years began in 1928. He was born in Dillonvale, Ohio, a tiny little coal mining town near Wheeling, West Virginia. Chuck's parents, Sam and Ethel Cohen, were Polish immigrants who came to Dillonvale to open a general store. Now, Chuck was the middle child of the 3 Cohen siblings. His older brother Lester and his younger sister Beverly, both of blessed memory, were the only Jewish family in the entire town. Chuck would describe his life growing up in this small town as a challenging time. It was a very rural farmland area, but he would also tell his children that he had years of happiness and fun. Beth, knowing that your father came from this little hick town, you would often refer to Dad as a Jew-billy. And so he was, this Polish Jewish hillbilly. Chuck was an intelligent young lad, and he even skipped a grade. He was a talented trumpet player, a gifted athlete, and a dedicated student who graduated second in his class at Dillonvale High School. And following his high school graduation, Chuck matriculated to Adelbert College of the Western Reserve University. He was the absolute very first person in his entire family to attend college. And this was such a big deal and such a matter of pride for his parents that the whole family decided to follow their son. And so the Cohens moved to Cleveland, to the Glenville neighborhood, where Chuck's father, Sam, opened another general store. Throughout his college years, Chuck would work with his dad at the store. And so he earned his Bachelor of Arts degree and then attended law school at Western Reserve. After law school, Chuck was drafted into the United States Army, and this was during the Korean War. And Chuck was stationed at Fort Knox, where he worked in the JAG office. Following the war, Chuck returned to Cleveland and immediately went into private practice. Charles Cohen, attorney at law. In 1957, Chuck Cohen and Betsy Nebel were fixed up by mutual friends. And I'm told that there's some friends here today that might argue as to who actually fixed them up, but we're going to credit all of you. Before they even met in person, Chuck called Betsy. They spoke on the phone for an hour and a half. And while on this call, he invited her to be his date for the wedding of one of his dearest friends. A beautiful courtship began. They were engaged 3 years later, and then Betsy and Chuck were married on March 27, 1960, at the Temple Tifereth Israel, with Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver officiating. Together, Chuck and Betsy loved a very fun and social life that the temple actually provided for them. They were active in the temple's Mr. and Mrs. Club, and Chuck, who was always the life of the party, performed in many of their shows. He and Betsy always looked forward to the temple's annual picnic at Euclid Beach Park, and they enjoyed playing tennis together. As they were building a beautiful life together, they turned their focus to building a family together. And when Stuart, and then Beth, and finally Leslie entered into Chuck and Betsy's world, the Cohen family portrait became all the more complete. Betsy and Chuck raised their children in Shaker Heights, and they saw in their father not only a man who worked hard to provide for them, who worked to make a living, but Leslie, Beth, and Stuart, the three of you grew to respect a man who worked hard to also make a beautiful life. You knew your father to be a man of commitment. There was, of course, his work, his private practice, which enabled him to provide for all that you and your family needed. But then you said to me there was his passion. And beginning in 1961, your dad split his time between his private practice and his passion, which was working as the chief attorney for the Cuyahoga County Child Welfare Department. This passion of Chuck's enabled him to make a difference in the lives of so many children. It meant a great deal to your dad, and sometimes you recall he'd even come home and would sometimes shed tears over a particularly sad and difficult situation. And your dad's passion instilled an understanding and a desire in all of you towards social justice and towards helping the underdog. You also remember a father who was the funniest, the smartest, and the most quick-witted person in the room. You described him as artistic and musically inclined, and he was a great fan of Broadway musicals. He also loved the music of the 1950s, especially Nat King Cole. Your dad loved being the center of attention. He was the MC at various events, and when your father entered into a room, everyone knew it. He was a bright light and a big personality who would fill the room with his laughter and his energy. Now, your dad, a farmer at heart, he would usually wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And even if he was at a party, and even when he was the life of the party, which he always was, Chuck would pass out at 8 p.m., wherever he was. The party would be going on, and you'd see him comfortably sleeping in a chair as everybody's celebrations continued. We know he was also quite a loving grandfather who was so proud of his grandchildren's accomplishments. His children and his grandchildren, Noah, Asher, and Eden, they all know a dad and a papa who would do anything for them. And they saw a man who would do anything for any one of his beloved friends. Chuck was a true and loyal and trusted friend. He wanted to be liked. He wanted to be loved. And mission accomplished on those. He was sensitive, non-judgmental, caring, and giving. He was an excellent and loving son and son-in-law. We might say of Chuck that he was a gute neshama, translated, a good soul. This was the man he was. Our tradition teaches us that words which come from the heart enter directly to the heart. His children rise up now to call their father blessed, and we're going to hear the words from their heart. You guys will stand on either side of her,
Dad's personality was larger than life. He loved to hold court and was a true entertainer at heart. Often asked to serve as the master of ceremony for events, if he could, he would be up here now going through a routine. I will try to do him justice. Dad was known for his quick wit and incredible sense of humor. Many of those present know what I'm talking about. Yet growing up with Dad, we were never sure if we should laugh or cringe. But politically correct, he was not. No one could turn a phrase like Chucky. He always had a joke on the tip of his tongue. My sister recalls taking him to urgent care, where he was seen by an Asian male nurse, an African-American female, and a female Russian doctor. Rest assured, he had a completely off-color, inappropriate joke for each of them. See why we cringed? Yet his delivery was such that everyone laughed along with him. One always could see the good nature in Chuck. Dad was born in Dillonvale, Ohio, to Polish immigrants, where he was raised more or less as a country bumpkin. Hardly a thriving metropolis, Dillonvale today boasts a population of about 650 people. Dad was proud to have graduated second in his class from Dillonvale High, although we thought that was hilarious, since we think it was a class of about 18 students. Anyway, he came to Cleveland for college and law school and ultimately made his life here. As they say, you can take the man out of the country, but you cannot take the country out of the man. In his free time, Chuck would be found at any one of the farmer markets around town or down at the food terminal early on Saturday morning, chatting up the farmers. It was not unusual for him to turn up at our home with bags of fruit, corn stalks, or any number of items he had harvested at the market. Gardening was one of his greatest passions. Wherever he lived, you could be assured that beautiful flowers would bloom. After the death of my mom in 2003, he planted a memorial garden behind his apartment complex, complete with a commemorative plaque and dedication ceremony. Today, Larry and I continue to grow irises in our garden that my dad has shared with us. As children, he took us annually to the Geauga County Fair, a tradition he continued with each of my boys. When we were growing up, he appeared one day with 2 ducklings, Daffy and Daisy, of course, that we raised in our basement until they were so large he had to relocate them to one of the Shaker Lakes. Many years later, he presented us with 2 rabbits. This, of course, was on top of the 3 cats in our home. A reminder we were living in Shaker Heights, not the country. Dad ended up in Shaker Heights after meeting our mother of blessed memory. As Dad would often joke, for every man there is a woman, but the Iceman has his pick, and Mom was his. She truly relished his keen wit and humor. But what stands out the most about Dad, truly his hallmark, was his generosity and warmth. He never met a stranger. He was generous to a fault. He loved his friends, was loyal to them for years. He spoke once a week to his best friend Billy until Billy passed away a few years ago. Dad was heartbroken. Dad had friendships that spanned more than 60 years. We are grateful for all of his friends, new and longstanding. Dad's warmth and generosity extended well beyond his friends and family. Throughout our childhood, we can recall numerous occasions when Dad was helping someone other than his own family. Sometimes it was driving around Cleveland to pick up elderly aunts and their friends to bring them to our holiday dinner table and temple. Oftentimes, it was to help one of his clients or the children that he served through his work as the chief attorney for the County Department of Child Welfare. His commitment to those children, victims of abuse and neglect, was well known. Dad was so proud of the work he did on behalf of these children, often bringing home stories that touched him so deeply. My brother recalls him leaving late in the night to remove a child from a dangerous situation. This is the work that was most important to him, and so perfectly combined his legal training with his compassionate personality. Dad reserved his greatest love for his grandchildren, the true delight of his life. He was known as Papa Chuck to his 3 adoring grandchildren, Noah, Asher, and Eden. Sometimes he showed that love by showering them with ridiculous gifts. For instance, at some point, he gifted all of them with a fleece kitten blanket. There was not an oversized, noise-making stuffed animal that he passed up to purchase. Papa also gifted his grandchildren with his intellect, his athleticism, musical talent, and creative personality. Each of the grandchildren will carry forth one of his special characteristics. Noah, his eldest, shares his love of jazz music. When learning that Noah was playing the Barry sax, Dad promptly showed up with CDs by the famous Barry sax player Jerry Mulligan. Papa Chuck and Asher shared the love of sports. He delighted in watching him play baseball, soccer, and hockey. And his youngest, sweet Eden, who brought him joy just being in his presence. Just like her papa, Eden has developed a love of Broadway musicals, a love we all share. We will always think of him as we listen to Oklahoma, Pippin, or anything by Gershwin. Even in his last few weeks, as he became more and more fragile, his kindness and humor prevailed. Dad lived his life to the fullest. Yes, he sometimes made us cringe, want to crawl under a table, but more often he made us proud. He loved that I landed at Belfair and that my brother and sister had found careers in which they could pursue their passions. No matter what we had done or become, we know he was very proud of us. And for better and for worse, his 3 children find themselves instinctively turning a phrase and cracking a bad joke. That Cohen gene runs deep. Consider yourselves forewarned, Noah, Asher, and Eden. But most importantly, he taught us to be generous, giving, and how to help others less fortunate. Dad certainly lived his life to the fullest. He will be missed. We love you, Dad.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם, אור בתוכנו. אורות אלה המאביקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. As you are able, I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, המסי מנוחה, נכונה תחת כנפך השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוכר הרקיע מסעירים, את נשמת חיים סורל בן שמואל ואתל, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן טרם מנוחתו. אנא ברחמים אסתירהו בסתר כנפך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Charles Chuck Cohen, who has gone now to his eternal home, may Chuck's soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and grant that his memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. Please be seated. Just two brief announcements. First of all, I'd like to share that if there's anyone wishing to make a contribution in memory of Chuck, the family has asked that you might consider the Child and Family Advocates of Cuyahoga County. This is an organization that ensures that children have advocates when they are facing issues associated with abuse and neglect. Also, I want to share that the Friends will be receiving visitors at the residence of Beth and Larry Pollock. That is at 21299 Almar Drive in Shaker Heights. Visitation will be today until 4 p.m., and then visitation will resume tonight from 7 until 9. And they'll also receive visitors tomorrow, Monday, from 1 until 4, and then again from 6 until 8 p.m. On behalf of the children and the entire family, we thank you for your love and support on this sad and important day.